This is Blue Left, a podcast dedicated to amplifying the underrepresented Democratic voices in Tennessee, working tirelessly to bring progressive change to the volunteer state. Here's your host, Peggy Kingsbury.
That's right. From grassroots organizers to community leaders, from urban centers to rural towns, we'll highlight the diverse perspectives and powerful voices that often go unheard. Join us as we lift up the blue wave and shine a light on the path toward a more inclusive and equitable Tennessee. Again, I'm your host, Peggy Kingsbury, and this is Blue Lift, where every voice matters. Let's get started. Wow, friends, have I got a treat for you guys today. And when I tell you how this all came about, you're going to be, I think, amazed. My guest today is Marcus Meneese, and Marcus is the founder and executive director of Stronger Than My Father, which is a nonprofit that is just now beginning to expand into Williamson County. So we'll learn all about that from Marcus here in just a minute. But I've got to tell you how this came about before I even give you some information on Marcus and his educational background and all of that. So, some of you may know that I am a very proud Rotarian, and I have been a Rotarian in lots of different places, and I am currently a very proud member and have been for a number of years of the Downtown Franklin Rotary Club.
Oh, yeah.
And so just like a week and a half ago, at one of our Rotary meetings, my good friend Tony Honeycutt began to tell us about this nonprofit, which he sits on the board of, along with Christina McClary, who is actually our president this year. And Tony was telling us about this new nonprofit, and I listened and I thought, oh, that sounds great. I remember, Big Brothers used to be a big thing in different places I've lived, and that's great. That sounds like a wonderful nonprofit. I'm so glad that this Rotary Club is supporting that. Didn't think a thing about it other than that, Come here to do a podcast last week with my fabulous producer, Jim, and he says to me when I'm finished, I may have a great guest for you to have. You should think about having this guy, Marcus Meneese, on. And I said, I don't know him. He said, yeah. And I think at that point he told me the name of Stronger Than My Father, but it went in one ear and out the other. But I did write Marcus Meneese down on a piece of paper. So as I do, when I got home, I began to research. And the minute I pulled it up, I'm like, oh, that's the guy that's running the nonprofit that Tony was talking about. What a small world. And, I think it's a God thing, whatever your flavor is, if you think it's, happenstance or luck or whatever. But wow, it's pretty cool that now here we sit. And we're going to talk about Stronger Than My Father. I want to let everyone know that Marcus is a graduate of TSU as well as Trevecca, where he has a master's in organizational leadership. And Marcus, let's just dive in by you telling us, what did you do when you got out of college that kind of then wound up with you being in charge of this nonprofit?
I will go back to when I was at Tennessee State, 2003. My mother asked me to mentor my cousin. And the first question I asked her is, where's his father? Why are you asking me to do it? And my mom says, your cousin doesn't have a father. And it was like an explosion went off in my head. And I said, wow, kids are growing up without dads. So that was 2003. So you moved 6 years later. When I went to Tennessee State, I studied psychology. And I wanted to study fatherhood and was wondering why the fathers are absent in the home. And then from there, I wanted to go a different path, but God said that you got to serve the fatherless, because I was trying to get a career in the corporate world and wanted to travel and those things. And then so when I left Trevecca University, I actually studied nonprofit. And from there, I knew that I had a passion to serve the fatherless through mentorship. So my degree in organization leadership led me to start a nonprofit and start the work of trying to help young kids break the fatherless cycle, one son at a time.
Wow, that's impressive. So the name Stronger Than My Father, tell me how you came up with that.
In 2012, my son had a shirt. My oldest son at the time was 3. I was taking him bowling, and he had a shirt that said "Strong Like Dad." Oh. And the day I was putting it on him, God just whispered, "Stronger than my father." And so I stopped, and then I wrote it down. And I said, okay. But I kept saying the words all the time, strong in my father, strong in my father. And I said, I got to do something with this. So my first goal was to do motivated speaking, to speak about fatherhood. And then I had a moment and I said, everybody talks about a problem, but not everybody's doing the work to try to solve the problem.
Oh.
So that's what led me to start my mentorship program. And that's how Strong in My Father come about. And then our cliche, the cycle ends with me, was just researching, realizing that I grew up with a father, and I'm doing the same things that my father taught me to raise my two sons. So that's a cycle. And then my father had his father. So that's how the cycle starts. And then now you have a cycle of kids not having a father. So now they're trying to look for validation. They're trying to look for people to uplift them. And sometimes it's the wrong influences. And those young men start creating bad cycles. And that's how you have some of the situations that you see now is because they've never been fathered. So no one taught them some of the things are right from wrong. They've learned it on their own or social media or just bad influence. And that's the reason why you see the situation that's going on today.
What a wonderful thing that you are doing. I mean, I just really want to applaud you now for that.
Thank you.
I just absolutely love it. And I did a little research, as I do. And so the core values of Stronger Than My Father are investing and enriching each life that you touch. And I know you also do some work with the moms, the mothers who are raising these young men who don't have a father in the home.
Yes.
And then you prepare them for educational achievement, which I absolutely love because education is really the key to success.
Yes.
Building dignity and sense of responsibility. I also love that. The dignity portion is super important to me. And the one I want to talk about a little bit is ensuring safety of the youth you serve. When you talk about safety of the youth you serve, are you seeing that many of these young men can fall prey to anyone who wants to offer them love and acceptance or make them feel important?
Yes, I think that's the issues you have now. That's why gangs are so prevalent. Gangs are called alternative families. Boys are always looking for validation from somebody. They're looking for somebody to say that I'm proud of you, I love you. They're always looking for that. I was looking at it from my dad. And when you don't get that from your biological father, then you out there searching for somebody to say that. And so if you have a gang member says, man, I love you, I'm going to take care of you, then that young man is going to fall prey to those people, the gang members and stuff like that. So for us, I always try to tell all the boys in my program, I always love them and say, I love you. Hope you do well. If you need anything, let me know. So I'm trying to kind of fill in that gap as a father figure by always letting them know and giving them that validation. Now, I never would be able to give them validation like their father. But if I can get them before a gang member get them, then I have a great chance of keeping that young man safe and also keeping him going the right paths in life. And that's why mentorship is so important. If you can grab them early, you have a better shot at guiding these young men because they bring to develop and say, you know what, I don't have to go that route. I'm going the route that, this program or Mr. Marcus is telling me. And that's what keeps these young men safe.
And so what age do you start working with young men?
Second grade.
Wow. So 7 years old.
Yeah, 7 years old. Yes. I tell any single mom, if you are a single mom, put your child in the program as early as possible because the things that I receive a lot is that people call me when their child is 16 and it's too late. For me, now it could be another program that can reach them at 16, but for me, it's very hard.
Right.
Because I'm going to go in with the mentality of what my father taught me, and you may not want that. But second grade, my youngest is in the third grade. I'm molding him now the way I need him to go.
Sure.
And I can mold these other young men the way I need to go because I have a better shot at it.
Right.
So starting early as possible is really your best way of grabbing these young men. So to answer your question, right now I started second and I stop at ninth, but if the young man goes into the 10th and he's still hungry, I'm going to guide him through 12th grade.
Okay. But that's kind of your sweet spot is from second grade to about ninth grade.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
How many young men are you working with?
Right now we have 20 young men that's in our program. I don't get a whole lot every year. I try to stick between 20 and 30 a year and don't go no past that because it's really hard. I like the intentional one-to-ones and it's just easier for our program to guide that way. Now, people who's listening that can fund us, then we can hire another Marcus that we can go out here and serve more kids. But right now, due to limited funding and stuff we just try to manage between 20 and 30 young men a year.
And I agree with what you're doing. It's so important because the last thing you want to do is for your group and your mentors to make promises to a young man that you then can't fulfill, and then someone else has let them down. Yeah. So you don't ever want to do that.
No, that's a true statement. That's how we've that's how I've tried to go in it. I'm now working with several men who wants to come in and be mentors, and I'm asking God to help guide me so I can figure out a better way to let other guys come in and help me out, because it's only one Marcus, and sometimes my mind says I can do it all. But now, since we are about to go into a middle school, that's going to be pushing Marcus even farther. Sure. So I got to start thinking that I'm 48 now, so I'm not 28, but I think I could do everything. So I got to start thinking smart now.
our common friend Tony Honeycutt was out there looking for men who would be interested in taking part. So he's doing his part as a board member.
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, I'm big on when I see a problem, I love when we can treat the symptoms of that problem. I think that's fantastic. And that's what your organization is doing. But I want to talk about the cause of the problem. Okay? So you and I just met here today, although we think we may have met before at a Rotary meeting, but we, it's a massive Rotary club, so we didn't remember. And so I have a background in police work and in criminal justice, have a master's in criminal justice. And so when I think about the problem, the symptom of young men growing up in a home without a father figure, I like to think about why that's happening. And here in Tennessee, we have a pretty abysmal record of looking at the root cause of that problem and then trying to do something about it. Okay? So we know that about 85% of the children with behavior disorders come from homes without a father present. Now, I don't want the listeners to confuse what I just said. I'm not saying that 85% of the young men without a father present will have behavior disorders. What I said was 85% of young men with behavior disorders do come from homes without a father present.
Yes.
So that tells you right there that a fatherless home very often can lead to behavior disorders. 70% of the children who are in state-operated institutions come from fatherless homes. That includes girls and boys. And 90% of homeless and runaway young people come from fatherless homes. 90%.
Yeah.
To me, that says, okay, the problem is there's no father in the home. And my question is, where is Daddy?
Yeah.
Where's Daddy, Marcus?
I think the stats you said are alarming. I think that when a man hasn't been fathered, you're not going to take fatherhood seriously. God is giving all of us the mechanisms to produce a child. But the issue is that if the man doesn't have it in his head that, you know what, this is my responsibility, he's not going to be there. And if he hasn't had a father in his life, he's going to say, you know what, I'm just going to make a baby and I'm just going to leave it. And that's what's going on today in America, is that kids are having sex at an alarming rate, and kids doesn't think the responsibility of being a father. And so that's where most fathers are at. I think that you have situations where the mother and father doesn't get along. You have issues with child support, where if the mother doesn't get so much child support, she's not going to let the father be around the child. So I think you look at all those factors is why you have a fatherless crisis in America, which I call the greatest pandemic no one talks about.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So it is a pandemic. So when you have 1 out of 4 children growing up without a father, and that's when you're going to start having a lot of all these effects. I'm a father of 2 boys. My kids don't have behavior issues because they know they got to deal with me.
Right.
So when we grew up.
Well, their teachers may say occasionally they do, but.
Yeah.
The
teachers know. Yeah. They know.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Up front, I say, if my son calls any issues, I'm going to text away.
Yeah.
I says, and that's all.
And you're going to deal with it.
And I deal with it. I said, he won't have it the next day. So when you don't have that, and when you put single moms in a position to where they got to do everything, they're tired. They can't do everything to try to raise a child. So God never had intended for that. He intended for the mother and the father to raise a child together, but the father leads the home. And the father's not leading the home, then that's when you run into issues. We didn't get in trouble in school because we knew we had to deal with daddy. You know, we have a great mother. All we had to hear was, do we need to call your father? And so me, my two brothers, and my sister, we didn't have behaviors in school because we didn't want to deal with daddy. Now, of course, that's what's going on today.
Of course, we know there are lots and lots and lots of mothers raising young men and doing a fabulous job.
Yeah, they're doing a great job.
We're not at all implying that they're incapable of doing that because we're women, hear us roar.
Yes, I agree with that.
So let me just be frank with you then and ask you, what percentage of your clients are young Black children?
90%. I have one white male that's in my program. One young man is Egyptian. And the one Egyptian, he's been with me for the past 2 years. He's seen abuse. His father was abusive, so the mother had to run. And so this young man is dealing with, now as he entered into middle school, he's dealing with identity crisis where controlling his emotions, issues, and stuff like that, because all he's seen was anger and lash out.
Right.
So now, being in our program, we teaching him that you don't have to lash out. You can find somebody to talk to. You know, if we need to pick you up on a Saturday that we're not meeting just to get away and eat breakfast or get away, we do that. So when kids in that middle school age, they're trying to figure out, who am I?
Right.
Why is my dad not there? When I go to school and we hear other kids say, you know, my dad's going to pick me up today.
Right. They don't have that.
They don't have that.
Plus, they got raging hormones.
Exactly. So now kids are angry. And then that's when you start seeing the crime and stuff like that, because they're lashing out. They're angry because dad is not there. Why did my father abandon me?
Right. Right.
So with our program, we try to fill in the gap the best way we can and being there for you. But that's why you have some of those issues you just brought up.
So when we talk about dad not being there, and we talk about the high percentage of children, girls and boys, who show behavioral issues and end up in the juvenile justice system.
Yes.
Who a high percentage of them who come from a fatherless home. As someone who studies criminology in depth, I also then have to look at more of the root cause. And I know that many fathers are incarcerated, or their fathers were incarcerated.
Yes.
So we live in a country that incarcerates a huge percentage of Black men, and we live in a state that said, hold my beer and watch what Tennessee can do.
Yeah.
So if you look at the list of incarcerated people per 100,000, Tennessee is at 817. That doesn't sound all that bad, but that's a lot.
Yes.
The country of Italy is 97. The country of Canada, 109. The United States as a whole, 614.
Wow.
We lead. Tennessee leads in that.
Yes.
Now, I have a lot of thoughts about why I think that is. Some of them are based on racism. Some of them are based on the prison industrial complex that we're running. And Core Civic is one of the main causes of that in Tennessee, and they give the politicians money and on and on. We don't have time to solve that problem. But it is true that people of color are overrepresented in our prisons in the United States, and certainly in Tennessee. And in fact, Blacks are incarcerated 3.4 times higher than whites. So when we look at the root cause of why a young man is in your program, because his father's not there, maybe his father wasn't there, maybe his father wasn't there, I would just almost guess that somewhere along the line, some level of incarceration came up in that past. Any thoughts, Marcus, on what we can do about that and how we deal with that? Because I would think that, obviously, I'm not a young man.
Yes.
Never have been, just so everyone understands. But I would think that not having a father in my home would be one thing. knowing that my father's incarcerated and not in the home would add a whole different level to it. Talk to me about that from your perspective.
I think that when you look at the incarceration things that's going on now, a lot of it's repeated cycles. It's repeated. I've never been to jail. Never stepped foot in the jail because my father worked us to say, yeah, I'm going to work y'all so hard, you too tired to get in trouble. And he did. And then we went to church on Sundays to get away from Daddy because Daddy worked us so hard. When I see kids who are dealing with parents that are incarcerated, I haven't dealt with that a whole lot. I would say that. I have talked to some kids who parents was incarcerated and asked them how did they deal with it. And their mother says, I just keep them active in doing stuff so they don't get bored, they don't get tired. And that's one thing I've always learned, that if kids stay busy, they're not going to get in a lot of trouble. Single moms have to learn how to, and I've seen a lot of them sacrifice their life. I mean, don't have no relationship with nobody else. It's just about my child. And your child has a better shot of not getting incarcerated. It's when I've seen parents who care more about themselves than they care about their child because they're young. They still want to go party. They still want to go do these things and not understand that my father told me when your child is born, it's not about you anymore. It's about making sure your child makes it.
And it's hard. It's hard to make that decision when you're yourself become a parent at 17 or 18 years old.
It's very hard. And if you don't have support, then all you're going to do is repeat whatever somebody else is doing. And so that's what you see now.
And we have so many grandmothers raising their grandchildren.
Exactly. And so the crisis, what you see with fathers is that if I'm a father at 17 and I've never been fathered, I'm going to abandon that child because I don't want to deal with the responsibility.
Right.
I don't want to go buy diapers. I don't want to go buy milk and stuff like that. I may want to go get the latest tennis shoes. So when you care more about yourself than you care about your child, that's when you have problems. So me as a father, I make sure my kids have something before I have something.
Sure.
And so, but that was only taught by my father.
Right.
My father,
you learned that from him.
Exactly. My father. So remember, everything. I'm so sorry. Everything is taught. Everything is taught by my dad. So my mentality of how I operate is by him. And if I didn't have that, I don't know what kind of father I would be. But when children don't have that, who teaches them the responsibility of fatherhood?
Well,
there's no one teaching them. So
a mentor that your organization provides.
But when you have these issues of incarceration and kids getting in trouble, it's because who's there to make sure they're doing all right? Where's the father telling them, you better not go do this, you better not go do that? And that's your issue. And a lot of people may or may not agree with me with that, but I only can go by the examples that I had.
Sure.
As a father.
Well, and I think, when I look at it, obviously, demographically, you and I have very little in common.
Yes.
What we do have in common is that we love other people.
Yes.
And we love other people that we were not entrusted to take care of.
Yes.
We love other people that other people were entrusted to take care of and didn't do their job, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. But from my perspective, when I look at this problem, and, in my criminal justice studies, this was a lot of the conversation is how we stop this cycle, When I look at the problem, and I've done a lot of reading on this, I feel that there is that black men in the United States are not seeing that they are respected. Mm-hmm. And when one doesn't feel respected and valued and seen and heard and recognized and acknowledged, then I think we make bad decisions.
Yeah.
And so it's this vicious cycle that, as you say, your group is trying to stop it at some point so that then the next young man can be sitting here in 20 years and say, I had a mentor who taught me how to be a dad. And so when I had my son, I became a great dad.
Yes.
I mean, that's really the vision, right? Is that we can change that cycle one child at a time.
Yeah, that's why I say that. I had a young man on my podcast, I think it was late last year. He was one of the second young men I mentored. And he became a father at 19. And when I realized, he said, everything you taught me started coming back to my head with what you taught me. He said, more, I couldn't help being a father at 19, but I wanted to be sure I'd be there for my kid because my father wasn't there for me. And actually, that second young man, just thinking about it now, his father's still incarcerated. So he talked about here in the jail, he saw his father for the first time at 8 years old in prison. That still is in his head now. He said, Mark, I can still hear the door slam. But he did say that I want to do better. I want to be a good father. And so I see him Thursday at our tie ceremony. But this young man kept watching me on social media saying, man, this guy's still mentoring. Because remember, I was mentoring him in 2014.
Wow. So he sees you consistently
still out here trying to help. Still trying to help. And he said, Mark, is there any way I can be a part of the mentorship program to teach them what you taught me? And I'm a hard mentor. I'm not a mentor that's pats you on the back all the time. I'm gonna fuss at you.
Right.
And but I fuss out of love.
Sure.
And so when
correction is good.
Yeah, when I see that. So I think it's around. I think it's blacks. I've seen whites grow up without fathers. I've had whites on my podcast that told me that growing up without a father affected him. I was at one church where I spoke at is predominantly white that I talked about fatherhood. And I probably had 10 people meet me after church telling me their fatherhood story. So I realized fatherhood is all the way around.
Sure it is.
To everybody. But you do see more of African-American young men on TV all the time that's getting arrested, that's going to juvenile, that's carjacking. I did a podcast about, I think it was over the spring, 10 and through 14-year-old boys robbing people now.
Wow.
And they're 10 years old with a gun. And that's because they've never been fathered. And so that's the thing that I see now that I think that, and I'm not saying God can't do anything. I think we have a situation. I don't think that'll ever be solved. That's just my opinion, because people are going to continue to have sex and have children. That's going to continue to happen.
Yeah.
So that's not, if that stopped, then I would say the father's cycle would stop.
Then we got other problems.
There you go. So that problem is never going to stop. But I think now that what gave me peace in doing this work is that you said it earlier, my goal is to try to save one child at a time. And because I used to think I could save all of them. I used to think that I was like, I'm going to save every last one.
Oh, sure. That's, and then, any of us who do nonprofit work get caught up in that.
And then once I realized that's not going to happen, then my goal now as a mentor is that let me leave something in you.
Right.
That maybe you'll see me 10 years from now and say, you know what, Mr. Marcus, what you told me was right. I had a young man in my mentorship program. He did a mentor video. And almost brought me to tears, which is very rare. And he said that Mr. Marcus act just like my father who's not there. He said he's teaching me things that my father is not having taught me. And that's when I realized that the work that I'm doing is what God is putting me to do, even though I don't want to do it.
Right.
I don't want to do this. But I always said I wanted a kid. What led me to this work is that I want a kid to have a little bit of what I had from my father. That's all. And so when I mentor, when I go pick them up, I've been to football games, this and that. But I enjoy showing up and letting that kid see me, that there's a male on the sideline that cares about me. For them.
That's so powerful.
And so I think that with the politics and all the other things that's centered around why the father's not there, is just if you haven't been fathered, it's very hard to be a father, because fatherhood is a hard job. It's very hard. Sure. It's enjoyable, but it's hard. So for me now, I have a 15-year-old and I have a 9-year-old. So the 15-year-old, I got to start teaching him all the different things about women and things you need to do and not do. But if I wasn't around, who was going to teach my son that?
Well, yeah, his peer group.
There you go. Who's going to teach my son about being respectful to women?
His peer group and the songs he listens to, that they listen to, et cetera, et cetera. Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
So my son doesn't listen to rap. It's not his choice. He just likes gospel music because my wife grew him up on that. And that.
But he still hears it.
Yeah, he hears things. But here's the thing: what my son does that I really like is that I always ask him how his day went. Anything we need to talk about. That's the father role. I'm trying to talk to him about that.
That's so important.
And so when you don't have that, who these young men talk to? So
They get bad advice from their peers.
Yeah, from your peers. So one thing that why I didn't go down the road a lot of kids went down is my father gave me one of the greatest advice. He said, son, be a leader, never a follower. He told me that in high school. He said,
and that
son,
stuck with you.
Stuck with me. So I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was fine with it. I was fine going to class by myself. But I wasn't going to follow you because my daddy said, I don't supposed to follow you. And so I've never been even to this day at 48. So I've never been tempted to drink and tempted to do drugs. I've never been tempted to do none of that stuff because of who? What my daddy told me. So having that inside of me is what I push into these boys. And I tell them, we do a game. People laugh at Jenga, but we do that game every year to teach them that every block is your life. And one wrong move can mess your life up. And so the kids used to grab the blocks at the top. I said, no, that's easy.
That's right.
Let's get the blocks at the bottom. So if you look on my social media when we did that session, you'll see boys all on the floor in curls and circles trying to grab that block. And one kid, all the blocks fell and he just lost it. Started crying and he lost it. So if you see a picture of me talking to this kid in the hood and I'm pointing at him like, this is your life. This is your life. So that's who I am as an individual. But those kids remember that. And some of them, the boys has been in my program. This is going on their third year. They know how I operate. They know I ain't no pushover I ain't playing with. But when I show up at their school, because I show up at their schools too, and I sit in their class, you know what the other kids say? Who daddy is that?
Yeah.
Whose daddy is that?
Oh, sometimes, just showing up is so important to a kid. So important.
Oh, I show up. I show up all the time. So you see a big guy like me come in your classroom, I'm not here to play with you. And so that's why, as a father, I know for a fact that being present in your children's life will make the greatest impact on them. And then the other thing about fatherhood that a lot of people don't know is kids watch everything that you do. My kids watch how I treat my wife all the time.
Oh, sure they do.
And how I learned how to be a husband, it was watching my dad.
Right.
But I didn't know growing up that's what I was doing. So even now, my parents been married almost 53 years. I'm always watching my dad. I'm watching how he operates and everything he does. But I use that as a teaching moment because that's what I wanted to go as a career to training development specialist. That was like my dream job. And my mom said, well, since that didn't happen, teach those kids what your daddy taught you. So doing some of my mentor sessions, we're grilling. But when I'm grilling, I'm like, all right, don't burn the hamburger. You know what to do. And those kids enjoy that moment. When we got here volunteering, I say it's important to always give back. So everything I do in our mentor session is a teaching moment. And so that's why I like doing it as a group. But if I need to grab a kid one-to-one, I still do that as well because I can't stop that. I have a ton of miles on my car. I buy a car probably every 4 years because I put a lot of miles.
Going back and forth.
Get my boys if they need me.
So with your program expanding, what sort of training do you have for a man who may want to become a mentor?
That's a great question.
I only ask good questions.
And I wish I had a solid. I think just what I'm really, really working. Supposed to have this was I was trying to work on this over the summer. I just didn't know how to clone a Marcus. And I said, the guys who's been with me, the mentors been with me for the past this on their third year. I just tell them to teach them the truth. And be there for them if they need you.
And show up.
Yeah. And so my guys show up. And that's why I recruit a lot of mentors because everybody can't make it to every session on every other Saturday. Right. But if I have 20 young men and I have 5 guys there, I'm good because we put them in groups and everything's a teaching moment. So I wanted somebody who's able to teach, who has a heart and a passion for a young man and put knowledge in him that he can be a better person. I don't think anybody can mentor like me. I'm just a different animal. But I think that if you're there, and I think that helps out with mentoring is somebody who has lived what they've lived through.
Right.
A lot of the things these young men are going through, I have never been through. I've never seen domestic violence in the home.
Right.
I've never seen my father cuss out my mother. So when the kid tells me that, I'm trying to tell them, okay, what can I tell them that makes them feel a little bit better? Those are things that I have to find other guys who's been through those things. And that's what I look for in a mentor. Have you experienced growing up without a father? So
let me ask you this. And this is going to be, it might sound a little bit blunt, but I can't
be blunt. Yeah.
Think of a better way to ask it. So I know that you're expanding into the Williamson County area, and we all know Williamson County and, money, money.
Yes.
So how is a white guy from Williamson County going to do mentoring a young black man? Who is probably going to look at him and think, some rich old white dude thinks he's going to tell me what to do. How's that going to work?
I've never experienced that.
Every guy,
No, every guy. I have 3 white guys. They all are great. They do great financially. Them young men embrace those white guys because they're there.
Okay, so that's good. So showing
up and being there
can override any predispositions that a kid may have.
Exactly. If you look at some of the photos on my Facebook page, you'll see mostly white guys grabbing these young men, and it's not even feeling sorry for them that they're black.
Right. No, it's because they want to do.
They want to be there and give them a leg up in life. And so when I look at some of the mentors that's been with me, all the guys who've been with me for the past 2 years when we relaunched the mentorship program, they love them. When they see my buddy Eric Burchett or Christian DeBay or Bob Lyons, they run to them, and they're happy to see them because they're there. So if you look at our last, if you go on our YouTube page and look at our last tie ceremony, you'll see a room where one of my mentors who's white come in, and you see all the kids run to him.
Now tell me about the tie ceremony. Tell everybody what that is.
What I like to do every year is to welcome the boys into our program. And it's basically just a welcome ceremony. Welcome them in. We all are making a commitment for 11 months of meeting every other Saturday. It's a huge commitment, and we'll welcome you into the program. We're putting a tie on you to say you are now part of Stronger Sons Mentorship Program. So it's just a welcome. And putting that tie on them, and it makes them feel like I'm a part of something, like a club, any club.
Sure.
Like when y'all do y'all Rotarian, y'all come up here, you do your pledge and stuff like that, and you welcome them in to becoming a Rotarian. And it makes you feel good, like, you know what? I'm a Rotarian.
That's right.
So I remember my son, this is the first year that I'm actually getting somebody to put a tie on my 2 boys because they're at every session.
Oh, they're there.
You know what my oldest son said last night? He said, MJ said, Jordan, I'm going to be a Stronger Sons on Thursday. And I'm sitting on the couch and I almost broke down. He says, Daddy, I'm going to be a Stronger Son. That's what the tie ceremony is about. It's about letting them know that you are part of a family that's going to invest into you and take care of you, and you are a son.
That's important.
Every young man wants to hear the word, hey, son.
Yeah.
Every young man.
Oh, yeah.
Wants to hear that. Every young girl wants to hear, hey, daughter.
Sure.
And so my father raised 3 boys. My mom and dad raised 3 boys and a girl. So I've seen both sides. I've seen how they were tough on my sister, but I've seen the decisions that she's made. Great husband, 3 beautiful children, but he taught my sister how to survive. And then he's seen us raise us up to be fathers. So all my brothers, we all are fathers. So the ceremony is just that. It's a pledge. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to the mothers because they meet every once a month as a parent and support group. That's all it is. The moms is just a parent support group. We all in this together.
Right.
And I tell a parent, the more you fight, the more we will fight for your child. And I said, if you get late, it's a commitment. You have to be able to commit for 11 months for us to change your life. I'm not Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I'm not Boys and Girls Club. I'm more direct. I'm more intentional. So the tie ceremony is this Thursday, and I'm excited to do it in Williamson. So I took the risk to come out to Williamson just for people in Williamson County to see what we're doing, the Rotarians, the other people who support us, and why these boys are happy to be a part of this program. I have a lot of returning, and I have some new coming in. So I'm excited to see both ends.
Now, do you have are some of the mentees from Williamson County?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so some of the kids are from Williamson County.
Yes.
Some Davidson.
Yeah, some Davidson. I have one young man coming from Hendersonville. I have one from Murfreesboro.
And how do you find these young men, or how do they find you?
I've been doing this for over 21 years, so a lot of people know me.
Okay.
So word of mouth, social media is pretty much the biggest thing.
Okay.
How people get a hold of us, because, like I said, people watch. Because I post every session that we do. Every 2 weeks, you'll see, if you follow us on social media, Stronger My Father, you will see our sessions every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I post sometimes.
I need to check that out.
Yes, I do live videos sometimes. Say, hey, what did you learn today? Before you go home, tell my audience what you learned today. And they'll tell you, hey, we learned how to build a greenhouse is what we did. We learned how to grill. We learned how to play golf. We learned about making better decisions in our life. We learned why hygiene is so important. Why I say, hey, you need to wash your face. You need to have cologne. You need to have this. We teach all of that. I told my boys.
Things that a dad would normally teach a son.
Yes. I fuss about appearance. I said, look, when you come to this session, if you look like you just got out of bed, you're going home. So mine is very strict. And that's why I want to keep a lot of kids.
That teaches self-respect, though.
Yes, because when we go out to different mentor sessions, I just teach what my dad taught me. My dad said, son, anytime you go out the house, you look presentable.
Right.
So I'm strict, and I tell parents, if this is not for you.
Of course, we live in a time when people go to the grocery store in SpongeBob pajamas.
No, I'm gonna always look. Anytime I leave the house. My father told me always look presentable.
Look presentable.
And I teach my boys that. My oldest son now, I buy him cologne and lotion. I say, hey man, before you go to school, make sure your hands look good, hair look good, you smell good before you leave the house. So
he's gonna have the girls interested.
Because pretty much what I buy now for me, the things that smells good, I buy from my oldest son. My youngest, I ain't gonna push me. Every now and then I spray a little cologne on before he goes in school. But my oldest son, I'm trying to prepare him because he'll be 16 in January. I'm preparing for life.
It's a big step. 16.
Yes.
Big step.
Yes.
Well, when I think about how a young boy gets to your program and what might have brought them there, I just want to say that, in my studies, one of the things that we learned a lot about was the effect or the symptom of that would show maybe there may be future trouble for a child is impulsivity. Impulsivity is a major, major indicator, just bluntly, of future criminality. Huge. And oftentimes, you will see a child of 5 or 6 do things impulsively, whereas you or I might be tempted to do something, but there's this little voice that says, oh, don't do that. You don't get in trouble if you do that. But there are some kids that you just see do these crazy things, and you think, what in the world? Why did he do that? And of course, if you study deep into criminology and the causation of criminality, you will learn that there are a lot of different factors that come into play. But we know that when young people show impulsivity at a very young age, mentoring, socialization, proper nutrition can overcome that. So nurture over nature can overcome that. And so, when I'm listening to you, I'm thinking, wow, so that's the step that is missing for so many men who are now have birthed children or cause children to be birthed and are not present, and or they're incarcerated, they're in trouble, they've just left their family, just said, no, like you said, I don't want to buy bottles and diapers and I'm out of here, know. And I believe that getting a hold of these children when they're younger and working on that and trying to turn that around is just so important. Criminal justice statistics will tell you by the time they're 15, it's too late. It's too late for most.
Yeah.
Now, that's very sad. Very sad. It breaks my heart, know. But it's actually borne out by facts. It's just frequently too late. So I love that you're using that sort of second grade mark. When they're in first grade, sometimes they cry if they have to be away from mama for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
But by second grade, they're kind of getting their feet under them and sort of beginning then to be able to make some of their own decisions, and that's when they need help in making good decisions.
Yeah, I'm even considering going to kindergarten. I met a lady.
I don't know, man. They snot and cry a lot.
You know what? This lady told me. She says this parent came to me. She said, Marcus, I wish my son was old enough to be in your program because he needs you now. even in kindergarten. Everything is about development.
Sure.
I think when you said impulsive, I thought about last Saturday we was doing a open house at the Franklin Housing Authority to recruit young men. And we had a young man that wanted to swirl around the chair because he was with his grandmother because he feel like he can do what he want to do. I stopped that quick. I said, let's talk outside. And I sat him down. And I said, look, if you don't want to be in the program, we tell your grandma I'm sending you home. But if you're going to sit here, you're going to sit here and you're going to act right. Do I make myself clear? That's all I said. That young man said just like this in the chair the rest of the time. So you know what? I just look at him.
Well, and he understood the consequences of his actions.
Yeah, it wasn't even no consequence. I just told him, you're going to sit and you're going to act right. You ain't going to act silly around me.
Yeah.
So when we go to restaurants, when you see a group of probably, on the average, before we went to Williamson, we had about 15 young men. We go in a restaurant. I had people walk to me and say, these are the most young men I've ever seen. I said, because they know the rules.
Oh, yeah, because if I saw them coming in, I would think, oh.
Yeah.
What are we in for?
Yeah, no. You sit there, we have rules in our program.
Right.
I don't discipline you, but we will walk. We will find work to do.
Well, and structure and correction are very important to children.
Yes, I think just, like I told you earlier, is appearance. And when we go to a restaurant, we're going to act like young men. We're not going to act like heathens. And that's what I tell them. And the other mentors, I got two guys like 6'4" my size. So nobody crossed them either. So I have enforcers that's probably tougher than me. So they already know the rules. And I tell them anytime you want to leave, there go the door. Because there's another young man waiting to take your spot who wants to learn and who don't mind me being disciplined. I'm hard on my two boys. My two boys don't get special treatment when we go to these sessions. I fuss at them just like I fuss them at home. They don't get special treatment. And no more the boys see that. They don't see that and say, you know what, Mr. Mark is always letting Jordan MJ, no.
Well, it's interesting that your own children go, because then the other young men can see that you're the real deal, because your own young men are getting your correction when they need it as well.
Oh, yes.
And just, from my perspective, the thought that there are children out there yearning for a father figure and not having it is just really heartbreaking. And I think it's one of the things that our society has. We have really let children down to a great respect. We have, and we've got to do better about that. And we've got to do better about it. In my opinion, we've got to do better about it individually, like you're doing. Then we've also got to do better about it corporately. In other words, we've got to do better about the policies that may have created some of these issues that are then creating these fatherless homes. Because it doesn't happen in vacuum. We've created a situation. We have tilled the ground in such a way in the United States that having fatherless homes is just a symptom of what we've done.
Yeah.
How can we possibly expect corn to grow where we planted seeds for tomatoes?
Yeah.
That's not going to happen. We've planted seeds, and it's coming back to roost. And it's decades. I'm not talking about this happened, started in the 60s. Long, long before that. We've gotten to this point. And so I think we have to do better. And, I believe that there are groups out there dealing with those root causes like we've talked about. And then there are groups like yours dealing with the symptoms, which are, okay, we've got these fatherless children. They need a father figure. They need an authority figure. The mamas and grandmamas who are raising them need help. And I love that. Problems have to be tackled from all different levels, you know. And I think that's wonderful. Now, you mentioned moving into Williamson County. I happen to know that there's some little golf tournament coming up. Tell us about that.
No, our golf tournament is in April. So our golf tournament is already passed. But I don't know any other golf tournaments that's coming up. But ours was in April. I was at Franklin Bridge, had about 105 golfers. So I would just tell your audience, look out for announcements in November for our 2025 golf tournament, which will be in April of 2025. Don't have the date, but it's usually the third Monday in April of 2025.
I think maybe the Downtown Franklin Rotary Club has a golf tournament coming up, and we're going to give you some of that money. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I like to hear the word money. So help our nonprofit grow.
Yeah. So we also got a note about the Stronger Than My Father's upcoming Stronger Sons tie ceremony. And that is going to be at the Entrepreneur and Innovation Center there in Franklin.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's going to be Thursday, August the 29th. And Dr. Kevin Dyson will be your keynote speaker.
Yes. Yeah,
that's
Dr.
awesome.
Dyson, real good friend of mine.
Yeah, that's great. And apparently I'm invited to a VIP reception at 6 p.m.
Yes. So you'll get a chance to meet some of the young men before they go off and hide. And then we'll bring the boys out later on. So it's going to be a nice event. And I'm looking forward to doing this the third time. This is our third one. So I'm excited to put ties on these young men. And then we're going to do another ceremony at West End Middle School on September 17th.
Okay.
So this is our first in-school mentorship tie ceremony as well. So I'm looking forward to meeting those young men at the school. So this is our first time having the opportunity to do in-school mentorship. So I'm really excited.
And I know that also you all have participated in the Rollick and Roll event that we have with our Rotary Club, which is great fun. Great fun. Can't wait for that. And I'll tell the listeners about that a little bit later. So if someone wanted to find you, your organization, ways to mentor and give, how would one do that?
Just go to our website. It's strongerthanmyfather.org.
Okay.
You can click on Become a Mentor. We have a real nice button that says Donate. And all your donations helps us continue to do the work we're doing.
Now, are you a 501c3?
Yes, we are a 501c3.
Okay.
Been for 11 years. And,
that's awesome.
So we've been around for 11 years. So God has blessed me to keep moving forward. But your donation helps us with, paying for, we feed our boys lunch every session. And then it pays for field trips, gas. That stuff costs T-shirts.
Oh, sure it does. Boys. Every activity you take them to, bowling you mentioned, any of those sorts of things.
So it just pays for activity fees and stuff like that. So if you donate, we have sponsorship opportunities on the website as well. So if you want to sponsor a young man, then we give out you a sponsorship packet. Or if you just want to just make a general donation to help us out. I mean, every donation is needed and to continue to do the work that we're doing to impact young men growing up without a father.
Wonderful. I'm so excited to have this time to sit down and talk with you a little further and learn more about what you're doing. I mean, these are the things that, to whom much is given, much is expected.
Exactly.
And certainly the people in Williamson County, many of them, much has been given. And so much is expected of us.
Yes.
And that is where I think our Rotarians come through. And I can tell you, if you're involved in anything with Tony Honeycutt or Christina McClary, then I know it's a solid deal because those two are just fantastic.
Yeah, we've been a family since 2021.
Yeah,
so
they're fantastic individuals, and what you're doing is so needed, and I applaud you for doing it because you could be off somewhere in a corporate job making a whole lot of money, but you're choosing to do this thing that you're called to do that I'm sure is rewarding you in a lot of other ways.
Yeah, it's good when you can see, we have a mentor video we just shot a couple of weeks ago, and when you see a young man say that Mr. Marcus was teaching me things that my father should have been teaching me, that's very touching.
Oh, that's going to make me cry probably when I watch it.
Yeah, we playing that at the tie ceremony, so you'll see that one.
Okay, all right.
But I think just today I saw the video for the first time today, and it almost got me. But just I tell people I'm only one individual. I pray that God blesses the organization where we can have more guys become Marcus and go in there and impact. I'm gonna always mentor. I can't. That's never gonna leave me. I've tried to stop many times, and then somebody said, "Can you help my son?" I'm like, "All right, hey, meet me at Chick-fil-A. Let me talk to him."
Yeah.
So, but I will say this. I know you're closing. Is that I have to thank my wife, Latoya, for allowing me to do the work. And I told my kids, you got to sacrifice daddy a little bit, and it's a sacrifice to go out and do what I do. Because I do want to live a normal life, like my father. But when you're called to do something that's bigger than yourself and you're tackling a serious problem that's affecting the world, is the fatherless. Kids, they desire, to pick up. I'm leaving this interview and going to pick up my youngest son at 3.
I'm sure they see that, though. I'm sure that, kids are smarter often than we give them credit for. And I'm sure that what they see is that our dad is doing something to help others.
Yeah, I don't know if they really see it, but I didn't want them to grow up to say that, Daddy, you cared about everybody else, but you never had time for us.
I don't think that's what they're thinking.
I mean, no, but some kids, I've seen it. I've seen other guys tell me that they cared more about the kids they were mentoring than their own child, and I was like, I'd never do that.
No, because you're using the lessons your own dad taught
everything
you.
Daddy, everything my father's taught me, I'm using some of those tools to help me. And also my mother. My mother's very spiritual. She helped me, guide me, lead me. And I've asked her many times, why did she ask me to do this work? Why you didn't ask my other two brothers? And she said, Marcus, all your life you've helped people. She said, son, you used to give kids your lunch money because you knew you had food at home.
She knew.
I didn't know that, but that's just God working with me as a young child.
Just how you're wired up.
And how I'm wired up now.
Yep.
So I can't run from the calling. So I just got to stick with it through the ups and the downs. When funds get tight, you just have to. I've learned this. God, we could be here for a long time. I've learned that the more you have to have a good relationship with God to do this work. You have to have a good relationship with God. Because if you don't have it, you'll quit. Because when funds get low, I get on my knees even longer.
And you have your faith that you
the faith helped me on. So thank you for the opportunity to be on this podcast. This is the first time.
I'm so glad.
Fun to be on the other end, being interviewed. So I
hope it was enjoyable for you.
I enjoyed every bit of it.
Awesome. Well, hey, I want to ask my listeners to make sure that you like and review and follow Blue Lift. We've got more great guests coming up. I've got somebody coming in next week that you all are just going to go, whoa, that's amazing. And it just keeps getting better and better. So thank you for joining us. And remember, your voice matters. Every voice matters, and your voice matters. This is Blue Lift.